Good morning guys, it's G-Economics here, and this is once again a video for Year 11, my Year 11 group, with regard to feedback for the June 2011 A591 paper. So that's the paper 1, the micro paper. So I would say in general this time the average mark for the class is a little bit down on previous scores. So let's just take a little look at this. And here we have a few general points as to why those scores might not have been quite as tip-top as they have been in the previous three past paper questions that we've done up to this point. So, 1A, part 3 is where I'd like to start, ladies and gentlemen. In the previous question, 1A, part 2, you're asked simply to explain what the opportunity cost is in terms of the economics classroom versus the English teacher. And then in A part 3 it says, okay, explain what's meant by the term opportunity cost with regard to this particular scenario. So two things you ought to have done here, most of you only did one. So the first thing that you all did very well was that you all said opportunity cost is the cost of the next best alternative foregone. So you gave the standard textbook definition. However, you should have gone on and then put that into context of the actual case study that you're given at the beginning of the question and related that back to your answer for 1A part 2 and to put that answer into context. So that's 1A part 3. B part 1. Now, you have clearly forgotten the functions of money which we did way back at the beginning of the course, so probably way back at sort of middle of, or back end of year 9, beginning of year 10, where we looked at the functions of money, and there are 4 of them. A medium of exchange, a unit of account, a means of deferred payment, and a store of value. So if you've forgotten those, as I think a lot of you have, check back into your textbook, check back into your class notes, and just make sure that you've got those, and obviously then you need to commit those parrot fashion, word for word, into your memory banks. C part 1. Now this is one of the reasons that I actually picked this paper, was because there was a question on it which asked you to use a set of data to plot a demand curve and a supply curve. Most of you were able to do that very well. However, do make sure that you label all the curves. So remember to label the supply curve, label the demand curve, and label the equilibrium price and quantity. And also, when you're interpreting it, be very careful that when you're reading down from the equilibrium point to the x-axis, that's obviously to get your quantity. When you're reading across from the equilibrium point to the price line, that's giving your price. Some of you very carelessly have got that the wrong way around, and there's a couple of marks just gone. And then lastly, part D. So I think this is probably the main reason why our class average in this particular instance is a little bit down on previous papers. Very important in all part D questions on these papers, very important to answer in context. And a lot of you didn't answer this particular question in context. So the question, the exact question was, let me just double check here. The exact question was, discuss the factors which are likely to cause the price of classroom desks to increase. And obviously the whole case study in the paper is about schools and desks and so on. So you could look, as many of you did, which was good and great, you looked at the demand side factors and you looked at the supply side factors. So there are a couple here. So for example, if there were an increase in the number of pupils in the school, you need more desks. Demand would go up, shift the demand curve to the right, expand supply, and put the price of those desks up. Some of you very nicely then went into a little bit of a discussion about the price elasticity of demand for those desks as well, which was nice to see. A rise in government grants for schools. So maybe if governments had more expenditure available to them, then the demand for desks would go up. Same thing applies. On the supply side, you could, as many of you did, talk about an increase in indirect taxes, for example, pushing up the price of the classroom desk. Or if the goods were imported, so if the desks were imported, a fall in the value of sterling, a depreciation in the value of sterling, would obviously then put the price of exports down, but it would put the price of imports up. So if we were bringing these if we were importing these desks from abroad, that would put the price up. So you need to look at these two factors and draw a couple of diagrams to explain them, and make sure that you draw your diagrams and interpret them properly. I think that the key problem in this one was when it came to the evaluation section at the end of it. So you could have evaluated by saying, well, you could have said something along the lines of, from the case study, there's no evidence to suggest that taxes are going up on desks, and we've no evidence to support the fact that the value of sterling is falling. Therefore, it would suggest that the rise in the price of desks is primarily due possibly to the fact that there's an increase in the number of pupils going to this particular school, or there's a rise in government grants leading to an increase in demand. You've got to relate it to the demand and supply side factors that you have in front of you. And if you do that, you'll not go far wrong. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. So that's week 4, past paper number 4, and see you again next time for past paper number 5.